This morning, Sasha and I are working on planting out some fall crops, some cabbages and some broccolis and things like that in the garden. We have continued to have extremely dry weather overall, and so as we're planting them out, we're soaking them very thoroughly and we're mulching them. And I realized this was an opportunity to talk about the idea, almost tongue-in-cheek, of the idea of a mulch savings account. And what I mean by that is that last winter, we got a ridiculous load of sawdust. It was 37 cubic yards, which is a massive amount of material. Most of that went into the chicken yard to absorb excess nutrient. We've talked about that in our chicken composting videos. But we had more mulch than we knew what to do with, certainly more than the beds could accommodate. And so what I was doing is, as we were bringing in wheelbarrow loads of mulch, I was finding areas to cache that excess mulch that's out of the way, and we could dig into it later on. So that's what we're doing right now. So last evening I started chipping away at this savings account, so to speak, of sawdust. And if you can imagine, it was running from here. I should have taken a before picture, but I just thought to make this video today. It ran from here all the way up right to the edge of this concrete. And it was, so far it's yielded around 20-25 buckets worth of sawdust. And so you could be saying to yourself as you watch this video, who cares? You have a pile of mulch over there. That's fine. But it's also, let's say you're in a situation where somebody contacts you, there's an arborist, or you're on chip drop, or there's a potential windfall of a massive amount of material, organic material that you can mulch with, and you don't know where to put it. What are some areas where you could just have a pile that's out of the way that you can rest for 6 months or a year even? And so in this case, we have an asphalt, this is an old pad. I think there was a shed that used to be here, or a little garage. So it's an impermeable surface. There's no way we're growing things right here. And so it made sense to bank up all this excess material. And I think what happened is it also made it a little bit easier for frogs to come and go into this little beautiful froggy pond. So we'll have to make sure once we're done harvesting the mulch from here, we can put a log back on here to make it easier for them to come out. While this sawdust sat here, really out of the way, we just basically walked on it, it absorbed all of the water from the spring rains, and the winter snow melted into it and sat. And so now here we are in this drought. It's 90 some odd degrees today, and the top of this sawdust is grossly dry. But you go down a little bit and it's a little more moist. Go down further and further, in fact to the full depth of where we dumped it, and it's basically wet enough you can almost wring water out of it, and we haven't had rain in a very long time. We'll be able to continue to go through this whole area, this little berm of mulch, and probably get another 20 or 30 5-gallon buckets worth of material just from this area as we get it back to grade. And then it'll be ready in the fall to have a bunch of leaf bags dumped on it, or some windfall of wood chips, or what have you. So it's a really nice, simple way to cache a lot of material out of the way that I can come back to later. One side note, if we go to fill this frog pond and forget to turn the valve off and it overflows, having all that sawdust right there absorbs the extra water, and any spills from our compost tea system can be caught by the sawdust, which would enjoy the excess nutrient anyway. So putting those piles of bulky carbon somewhere near a water source, maybe a rainwater collection system or downslope of a pond, different ways like that, it can be a really nice way to absorb those pulses of water that come through once in a while, although not lately. Here we've got a compost pile that's resting and aging, and we've found over the years an incredibly wonderful place to dump excess wood chips, leaf bags, sawdust, whatever, is right up against a compost pile. A good heavy rain comes, or a thaw from after a heavy snow, and that excess nutrient that would leach out of the compost can be absorbed by that nutrient-hungry carbon bulk material. Here you can see leaf bags, leaves from last year, sawdust from January or February, and it's all mixing together. We can actually harvest potting mix from outside our compost bin and just have a huge amount of material there to absorb the excess. There are layers of sponge happening right there.
Just an aside, this material is also what we use for our cat litter in the house. And it doesn't absorb in clumps in the way some of the stuff you could buy does, but you're not constantly buying these plastic bags full of stuff. It's a lot probably less expensive, and you just have to change it more often. And in the winter, we just fill buckets and keep it in the house with the fresh material to use when the pile freezes up. But the cats have no problem. It seems good for them to be walking on this stuff.
I feel like for a lot of folks that watch this channel, there's nothing earth-shattering about the content in this video, and I get that, and I'm sorry if it doesn't feel that interesting. Really, the target audience for this are those folks who have thought, ooh, it would be great to get a load of wood chips, or there was an opportunity to get 10 yards of wood chips, but I didn't know where to put it. I didn't have enough garden space to put it. If you can, if there's space to give yourself some room to creatively cache that material off to the side, downslope from a compost pile, that leaky rain catching system, it will really help your future self. That material sitting still for a year or 2 or even 3 years will really aggregate value, move closer to soil, and be useful later. So my hope is that for those of you that have the opportunity to receive lots of carbon, you can say yes, and you can cache it off to the side and use it later. Thanks for watching.